to Pound for Pound Sports. I'm Nick Eustuce.
I'm Daren Andersen.
Thank you guys for joining us once again. Justin TV, UK fans alike. We love you all. Thanks for your support. Facebook, Pound for Pound Sports. At Nick, PFP Sports is the Twitter you're looking for.
I'm at Daren, PFP Sports.
It's secondary.
And don't follow. No one else does.
PFPsports.com is your website. Check on the main page Saturday morning at 9 Pacific time and click on the radio. We're also on ESPN, which, by the way, we do a completely different show if you guys haven't heard that rap before. It's totally true. We have a lot of mainstream guests, actually. We're trying to get Daren Cruikshank. Daren, you're working on that.
I am.
And Cyborg Santos has gave us the good word that she will be there. So we're excited. You guys tune in, and we promise you a good show. With that, like I said, it's a totally different show. We do a lot of kind of do things organic here on this show, which I kind of like the way it's been lately. You know, it's a lot less prep, and it's more organic, and we just really talk about some of the stories that have happened this far in the week. And it's kind of funny, you know, by the time you get to Wednesday, there's a ton of stuff that's happened, and I definitely have no shortage of opinions. I don't know about you.
That's exactly what we're able to give our opinion, you know, a lot more on these mainstream topics, and it's kind of fun.
Well, yeah, you know, when you're not like trying to cram something into a certain amount of time,
right.
and you, like I said, you can be organic and say what's really on your mind. I don't know. It's refreshing. It's a totally different show. We hope you all enjoy. So with that, we're going to dive right into the headlines. Frankie Edgar, seems like we're talking about this guy every other week now. Apparently now he wants to move to featherweight. I don't know, man. It doesn't surprise me just because it seems like he's a little undersized for 155. So, I mean, you know, everybody's been saying that that's probably the right division for him to go. I don't know. I kind of wonder if going there, you know, are we already talking title shot? Is title already in the mix? It seems to be in a lot of people's mouths, you know, just with this move. Do you think that, first off, two-part question, if he moves to 145, first off, is that the right division for him? And second off, do you think that he should be right in line for a title shot off the bat?
First thing, I don't think he necessarily wanted to move to 145. I was watching the post-fight press conference after he lost to Bendo, and Dana White was kind of pressuring him to move to 145 and has been for quite some time. I know he's undersized in the weight for the 155 weight class, but we never really seen that come into effect, I don't think. As a matter of fact, I actually, to put a little spin on this, I thought him fighting, being the smaller guy at 155, actually gave him the advantage. We always saw him have the speed advantage.
Always.
Which is something that he's not going to have at 145.
Yeah, no, he's definitely sacrificing that.
Whether I think this is a good move for him, I mean, where else can he go from here? We're not going to see him get another title shot at 55 anytime soon. So no. It's definitely a good move for his career to climb a mountain to get another title shot. Should he get an immediate title shot? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's guys in that weight class that are much more deserving. Why don't we see him fight a guy? I don't know. Korean Zombie comes to mind.
Fantastic.
Korean Zombie, you know, in my opinion, would probably be him right now.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of guys that I mean, it's certainly worth a try. I don't think he has anything to lose. He doesn't have to cut that much weight, so I mean that's not going to be a factor. I really feel like, but at the end of the day, all he did was eliminate the bigger, stronger wrestlers.
But if he's losing that speed advantage that he had such a big advantage to over guys like BJ Penn and even guys like Bendo and Gray Maynard, I mean, he had that speed advantage. When he loses that, what is he really?
Yeah,
what is he really? He's a solid boxer. You know, solid. I mean,
he's not really a threat to put anybody away. Though.
No.
That's why I've never been a huge Frankie Edgar fan. Just because, like I said, if ever there was a sure prop bet, it would be that a Frankie Edgar fight's going to go the distance, 3 rounds or 5. I mean, he's just not a threat to put anybody away. But you know, that said, I think you're probably not even probably you're right on target with that. Just in that. Yeah, he's going to be in a division where everybody's that fast.
Everybody's going to be just as fast. I mean, look at the champ. I mean, we're talking about Jose Aldo. You know, he probably could be one of the most dominating champions that the UFC has.
Diego Nunez is another good matchup for him.
There's all kinds of guys. Manny Mendez. I mean, there's all kinds of guys in that weight class. We don't need to sit here and you know, go through them all, but the one thing that he has now at 155 is a speed advantage, but he's not going to get a title shot anytime soon.
Right.
And no, he should not get an immediate title shot. He should have to win at least 2 fights, in my opinion.
It's an excellent point, and you know what? Quite honestly, I'm so sick and tired of people. You know, they have a failed title shot, or title defense, whatever the case may be, and then they drop weight. Okay, well, I should be next in line for the title just because I'm I got name recognition. This is my first chance at this division. Kenny Florian comes to mind.
Yeah, I remember,
I think he was fighting Jose Aldo, and he was saying that, I think Aldo was saying, or somebody in his camp rather was saying that, hey man, you're gonna have to move down to 135 if you want a title because it ain't happening over here. And that just, I'm so tired of immediate rematches. That's got to be number one on the list to go. That's first, and second would be guys moving down and dropping weight and getting a title shot. Not only do I think he should not get a title shot that early, I think it's got to depend on who he beats, how he beats them, and I think you need more than one credible win in a weight division to justify a shot. I don't care who you are.
And it should, a guy like him, he should almost go to the bottom of the contenders.
Yeah, anybody, and that's the same goes for Sonnen. The same goes for anybody in any division. If you have a failed attempt, you should get back in line with the rest of the people. And like I said, everybody will be the first to tell you that the UFC isn't the place to come learn how to fight. I mean, every division is deep. It's the best organization in the world for a reason. I mean, that right there tells you that there's plenty of guys in each division to where, I just think it's hard to justify guys getting right back in line.
We've been talking about that for a while on this show. Kenny Florian's a great example, but there comes a point in time if you can't win in your own division, you need to step up your game, move camps. I mean,
learn how to sweep, defend this better, defend that better.
But then again, we don't really know if Frankie Edgar. A lot of people are saying 145 is his natural weight. I'd be interested to see his first fight, 145, to see how he looks, to see if he's able to carry over that speed. I'm almost wondering at this point if UFC isn't going to throw him a cupcake his first 145.
That wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me either because for some reason they really like him, which he seems like a likable guy. I mean, I'm not trying to sit here and poo-poo on him, but I just think there's better options at 155. There's better options at 145 in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you.
Better options at 135. However far down you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what you're going to see. If they spoon feed him a title shot, I mean, what's next?
So we're going to watch 135, knock his head off.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's going to be a while.
There's other guys in that division that deserve some love before Frankie Edgar comes in.
That's what I'm saying. How pissed would you be if you're in that division and you're any one of those guys you just named off? And you're like, wait a second.
It'd be one thing if they didn't have clear-cut number ones or clear-cut guys in line for title shots.
Right.
But they have it.
But they do.
They have a couple of them. They got Eric Koch who's coming up. He's got the next one.
Guy.
Korean Zombie. Like I said, that guy. Man. I don't know how much more that guy's got to prove, but there's other guys.
Excellent point. I think Buck's got to stop right there. It's going to take time, and it's going to take some impressive wins in both of our opinion. Speaking of guys that fight in the smaller weight classes, I was kind of sad to see that Miguel Torres got released from the UFC. I mean, like I said, he's 2-2, UFC record. I don't know, man. It shouldn't come as a great surprise when you have a couple of losses on your record like that, but, man, it's unfortunate. I mean, I know he had his bouts with the Twitter and, he got under a few people's skin and this and that. I mean, are you really surprised to see him go and get released by the UFC?
You know what, I am. I think he had a bit of a short leash here. I mean, he's 2-2. I know, man. We're talking about a guy. It seems like no matter what time, John Jones is the guy now. But there's always that guy that you look at and you're like, man, I cannot picture this guy losing. You look back a couple of years. Remember, we were saying that about Gabriel Gonzaga. You remember that?
I know.
Andre Arlovsky before him.
Everybody.
You wonder, like, when's that guy going to lose? Chuck Liddell. And then eventually they lose, and then it's almost like, man, this guy, it's hard to remember him winning.
Right.
But at the end of the day, he was 2-2 in the UFC. We've seen guys hang around with much worse records than that.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, look at Dan Hardy. He dropped 4 straight. I mean, it really depends. I don't think the whole Twitter saga and some of the things that would come out of his mouth, I think that didn't help his case. I don't know that it was the straw that broke the camel's back, but I'm sure it didn't help.
No.
And you also raised an interesting point because there's a couple fights in the WEC when Miguel Torres was back there, and people were talking about him being in the top 5 pound for pound.
Pound for pound, and I couldn't agree with him more. At the time, I thought he was too. He put off before Brian Bells knocked him out.
Right.
He was as impressive of a fighter as there was in MMA.
No, absolutely. And you know what? Some of his losses in the UFC cost me a lot of money. I bet on Miguel Torres hands down.
Yeah, you keep on trying to get him to come back to that, and he hasn't. But maybe this is what he needs. Maybe going to this. I know they've already ticketed him into fighting in front of his hometown because he's already signed with
right. It's a little more convenient
Titan fighting.
Right. I mean, not that you don't want to make the trip to the UFC. I'm sure he would in 2 seconds.
Yeah, but maybe this is what he needs. Maybe he knocks off a couple wins in a row, gets that confidence back, and then comes in the UFC. And I mean,
Titan fighting is actually they're starting to attract a couple more bigger names. Braulio Estema's a big one. He's making his debut.
Anthony Johnson.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, these guys are coming up, and they're doing a good job over there. Of it's kind of the age-old question. Not a lot of guys really develop their own talent. I mean, there's enough guys that kind of come through the UFC to where, some organization out there is going to find them and sign them. But I like what Titan Fighting is doing so far. It's better than the organization. I can't even remember the name anymore. The one Sylvia and Orlovsky are fighting.
One FC.
Yeah, I mean, at least this is a credible, and they're still signing guys that have life in them.
I mean, they're signing guys that just have. I mean, Rumble Johnson. There's no doubt. I think he's still got the talent to fight in the UFC. The guy just can't make weight.
The guy's walking around 220 pounds, and he's trying to cut to 170.
Yeah, I mean, but he's still a talented fighter. He's find
the right class for him, get his head together. And like I said, a couple guys come to mind. Jamie Varner's one of them. I mean, there's a couple of guys. Patrick Cote's another one. I mean, guys that found themselves in the same spot Miguel Torres is in now. They string together 3 or 4 wins. They get invited back.
It's just so weird seeing how these guys so dominating, and then now
what went wrong?
Yeah, and then to now to be fighting and Titan Fighting, nothing against them, but it's just, I mean, at the time, 3 years ago, this guy was best in the world.
Best in the world, talking about. It's crazy, man. Well, like I said, I hope that's the way it goes.
That's what puts a streak like what Anderson Silva's been able to do. That's what makes that even more impressive, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're not even talking. I mean, just staying around in that organization for that amount of time, let alone the amount of title defenses. I mean, I totally agree with you. One of the greatest ever, Dan Henderson. He's fighting in 2 weeks, man. I can't wait to see it. Do you think it's fair to call him the best 205er ever, or if not that, one of the best? I don't think anybody could argue that he's one of the best fighters of all time. I don't know about 205 specifically. I mean, he's had a lot of great wins over there at 205, but I mean, he's had him at 185 as well.
Yeah.
He's even had a big one.
He's also had some shady losses. A lot of them at 185.
Shady losses?
Jake Shields comes to mind.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not one to sit here and make excuses. Although I think if you put Dan Henderson and Jake Shields, let them fight 10 times. I don't know that same thing happens to Dan Henderson every single time.
No, he's absolutely one of the greatest ever. I love watching. I love watching
heavyweight
Dan
win
fight.
against Fedor. I mean, the guy's fought 3 divisions.
I've read a couple articles the last week or so that have said if he wins this fight, he will be the best 205er ever. Not any question. He will be the best. First off, that's an awful big mountain to climb.
That's
beating John Jones right now.
Well, not just that, but 205 is one of the most stacked divisions for as long as probably more talent has probably come out of 205. More exciting talent out of that division than probably any other division for the life of the UFC. I would just
look at some of the runs, some of the other superstars like you look at guys like Chuck Liddell, Wanderlei Silva,
tons.
Shogun
tons.
Over in Pride. I mean,
so
there's
many
a bunch.
Different...
So to call him the best, hands down the best, no, I disagree with that. But one of the best, absolutely.
Well, you know what? Anytime you call any one fighter, single them out and call them the best, you're going to have 100 people out there that don't agree. It's hard to find any one fighter and say, hey, they're the best at this or that. But
you can't do that in any weight class. So
and it's too and
the exception of 185.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can't find anybody that's put together a streak like that until you do. I mean, you're never going to have that argument.
But I mean, we never got to see Dan Henderson fight Chuck Liddell in his prime, in their primes. And Dan Henderson arguably is still in his prime. That's what's amazing to me about this whole thing.
I know, man. The guy's pushing 40, and he's probably as scary now as he's ever been. I mean, like I said, his timing is right. I mean, just all the experience come into play. I mean, he's just finding those openings. He's staying more efficient. Obviously, it's no secret what Dan Henderson wants to do when he gets in there. But that's what makes him an exciting fighter and relevant at this age. And not just relevant, but fighting for a title against, arguably one or two pound for pound guy in the world. John Jones, Andersen Silva, depends on who you talk to. But man, real tall order, man, in front of him with John Jones. But I think I can't remember if it was Joe Rogan or Dana White that said it, but it might even been Dana White. He says, win, lose, or draw, it doesn't matter. Dan Henderson is one of the best ever.
Yeah,
it really
question.
doesn't even matter.
No question.
If he wins the title now, it's as far as Dan Henderson's, it's just icing on the cake.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to cement or break his legacy one way or the other. But man, you talk about an exciting guy to watch over the years. I mean, you've never ever seen a boring Dan Henderson fight ever.
No, he's definitely one of the greatest ever. But I don't think you'd call anybody the best at any one weight class.
Yeah, I mean, and there's too many styles. There's too many what ifs, and it's
too many arguments. There's too many arguments against him being the best. So you can't call him the best.
It's almost like sitting in a barbershop. You know what I mean? Everybody's always having the argument. Oh, so and so fought so and so, and we'll never find out. So it's irrelevant. But one of the best ever, absolutely. Women in the UFC. We've been talking about this for weeks. In fact, we're working on a couple of people from Invicta, which I'm actually becoming a big fan of because I believe they probably showcase more women's MMA than anybody else. I mean, you could say Strikeforce.
They do.
Well, yeah,
no,
they do.
Absolutely do. That's all they showcase.
Well, you could say Strikeforce. Obviously they're doing a great job. They're putting them on, on the spotlight. It's Zufone and all that. But you talk about an organization that caters to nothing but women's MMA, and that's, I was just saying, you talk about an organization that develops talent, doesn't just take it from another organization, but they develop talent, and that's what I like. Dana says he's warming up to the idea of women in the UFC, and one of the questions I want to ask Cyborg this weekend is if she thinks that fight between her and Rousey will actually take place in the UFC. What do you think? Do you think Dana White's warm enough to the idea to where something like that could happen?
I think he's warming up to the idea of having a women's super fight in the UFC, but if we're just talking about bringing women in general over to the UFC, it's not time. It is not time. It's just it's not competitive enough. We saw it last weekend. You got the number one contender, Ronda Rousey, absolutely walked through her punches. I mean, like it wasn't even affecting her at all. Took her down and submitted her. I mean, like it was nothing. Like we saw a lopsided fight. We saw lopsided odds that were correct. At the end of the day, those odds were correct.
I still think they were wrong. Yeah, you saw
they were correct.
A minute-long decimation.
She walked right through her punches. They didn't even have any effect on her whatsoever. They were slow.
6-1's too much, man.
I disagree. The way I watched her walk through her, I disagree. I think the odds were just right, and that's the problem. That was the number one contender. That's who we have fighting for the belt.
That's true.
And last I checked, everybody wants to talk about Cyborg and Rousey. They're not even in the same weight class. That's the problem we have. That's the problem we have with women's MMA.
Right.
They're not in the same weight class. Why? I mean, we don't have this argument. There's a couple cases with like a GSP Andersen Silva fight. They've been talking about that for years, but the only thing those two have in common is that they're women. So why? I mean, everybody's already ticketing them to fight each other just because of the two best women fighters on the planet.
Right. Well, there's 4 women's divisions. You see that in Invicta. So 4 is, you got enough room to step up and down. I think that's enough divisions. But you talk about coming to the UFC, they've already got 9 men's divisions. I mean, their roster's 400 deep. I mean, there's only so many shows they do all year. I mean, what's the answer? To have more shows? I mean,
yeah, I think there's a place. There's definitely a place in mixed martial arts for women, and I think Invicta. And we're trying really hard to get the president of Invicta on the show, but they're in a perfect place right now because they can bring up all the talent. And Cyborg's even hinted at getting dropped from her current contract and maybe going over there. She's already hinted at that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if more women fighters start going over there. Maybe we see a girl like Sarah Kaufman. There's going to be a time when Invicta Fighting Championships can offer these women the same as what Zuffa's offering them.
Yeah,
and now it's that more competition, more recognition, and
they need a TV deal. That's really the make or break right there.
And they'll get it. And once they do get that, then it's all smooth sailing from there.
Yeah, and I was talking to Barb Honchak's manager, and he was saying that he believes that women's MMA is about 8 years behind, men's. I mean, if you look at men's MMA 2004, 2005, that's about where you see women's MMA today, just in terms of exposure, getting main events, whatnot. But I don't know. I think if Invicta, they're on the ground floor of something great. I mean, they're promoting, they're developing their own talent. I would say within the next year, you'd probably see. I mean, look at the last year. Look at what women's MMA and where it's come from just in the last year. Where will it be a year from now?
Let me ask you, but in order to be in the UFC, you got to have the best of the best. We can't have 6-1 odds in a title fight.
No,
and you see that every once in a while in the UFC. I'm not trying to say you don't, but you tell me who can Ronda Rousey fight next if it's not Cyborg? That's gonna attract anybody.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, and I think that's really when Dana White says he's warming up to it. I think you're probably right. That's really what it boils down to, is who can we put up against her to generate interest. I mean,
Cyborg's it.
Yeah, that's the super fight.
That fight I could see happening in the UFC.
I think that fight will happen in the UFC. I think that's gonna. I mean, Ronda Rousey, she drew the best Showtime ratings all year. I mean, well over 500,000. I mean, that doesn't sound like a lot when you compare like network television, but for a pay service like Showtime, I mean that's pretty good for Showtime.
That's great, but I still don't. What would be the UFC's got to stay away. I'm not trying to call women's MMA a freak show here, but they got to stay away from those kind of fights. Why just bring a women's fight over there for just that? I mean,
it's got to be competitive. It's got to be super.
No, but why even just have that super fight? Why even say, okay, well, since this fight's going to be good, let's have that in the UFC?
Well, why have
you don't think Showtime's going to put the axe on that?
I mean, why? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to say. You know, I don't really know. I mean, I'm not privy to the meetings and stuff. But I mean, why have Junior Dos Santos and Cain Velasquez on Fox for just one fight? I mean,
no, but what
why
I'm
not
saying
try
is,
it out?
if women aren't fighting in the UFC right now, why just take their biggest draw in history probably and put that in UFC?
Because it'll sell tickets, sell pay-per-views, and at the end of the day, that's what they're in the business of doing.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
I don't know.
It wouldn't surprise me to see that fight of all fights, especially. I mean, we're potentially, 9 months out. I mean, we're a minimum of 6 months before Cyborg can even get in there and tie it up. So, I mean, we're already running the gums. They're already promoting that fight, and it's safely 6 to 9 months away from happening.
By the way, both women are completely talking about how it's not going to happen. Cyborg's come out and said there's no way she can make 135. And
she can't.
Yeah,
she can't lose any weight.
And Rousey said she won't fight her at 145.
And that's what I want to see for somebody. And again, that's what I'm going to ask her on Saturday is, obviously I don't see how it's possible for her to make 135, and Rousey is not budging on that 135 yet. She'll call her every name in the book and call her out. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if you want to beat her so bad, why not do a catch weight of 140, meet somewhere in the middle, or even go up to 145? I mean, it seems to me that she wants her to cut weight and gas early. She wants the advantage, which I can't say it's not a bad idea. I'm just saying, why talk all that smack? Why promote the fight that way if you're going to stipulate that, hey, this can't take place anywhere else besides 135? Because I want you to lose the extra weight and I want you to be dry.
I agree.
Let's fight. Let's fight already. That's what I think they should. That's what I say.
That fight needs to happen, but I don't think it will. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more on Saturday with her in studio.
I'm letting all the good questions out of the bag before I even get to that. Before I even get to that point, but we'll find out on Saturday. A couple matchups that are coming up real quick. I want to get to Gray Maynard and Joe Lozon. They're slated for UFC 155 in Vegas. I think that's a fantastic matchup. I'm really excited to see that they're going to pair Maynard up with somebody that's not only credible but looked great his last outing. And you know what? Gray Maynard should not be, again, he shouldn't be getting right back in line for a title shot. I think this is absolutely the best matchup they could make for him. And, this is going to kind of dictate where Gray Maynard goes, and Joe Lozon for that matter. Yeah,
I don't think anybody can make the argument that Maynard deserves another title shot right now.
No, he will, because he's banking on the fact that Nate Diaz is going to win, and he says there's history there. There's a trilogy, and should Diaz take the title, he's hinting that he wants to be next in line, and there's a trilogy there, and that's enough to justify him getting another shot. That's what he said last week.
Okay, great.
Which I'm glad that, like I said, we've got Lozon
Gray
here.
Maynard, he got caught up in the whole Frankie Edgar debacle, which wasted a year of his life.
Yeah,
and then he fought Clay Guida, which that whole incident. I mean, I don't really know what that was all about, but it seemed like wasting another 6 months of his life. So I feel bad for him. One thing Joe Lozon's going to do is give him a fight. We know that,
and that's what I'm saying.
I think that's going to be a terrific fight. I can't wait to see that. But there's guys out there that have been on the back burner for so long because of this one.
Pettis is another one. It's ridiculous.
We keep on talking about that, but he's the guy that comes to mind that would deserve a shot before Gray Maynard would.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Lozon's a great
matchup. Gray Maynard's had
his
chance, dude.
He has, and like I said, before you even start talking title and Maynard in the same sense, let's see how he does against Joe Lozon. I mean, Lozon looked fantastic on his last fight, and he's going to give him a fight.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
We're going to find out a lot about that, and hopefully we won't be talking about this bottleneck.
Well, I know there's a rumor. It's just a rumor at this point, but they got the Cowboy fighting Pettis. Everybody wants that fight.
I know too.
Both those guys want that fight, and I'd argue the winner of that fight deserves a shot before Gray Maynard does.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely argue
regardless
that.
of what he does against Joe Lozon.
I just think, man, it's hard because what's funny is the boxing fanatics are going to be like, man, they have every reason to pick apart MMA and this and that, but one thing that MMA doesn't have a leg to stand on is when you give guys with one win another title shot. To me, it takes away from the legitimacy of a title. I think you should have no less than 3 wins, 3 credible wins against 3 credible opponents to justify a next title shot. I just think it should be a rule. I mean, to have a guy get in or even have this argument is ridiculous with 1 win.
Okay.
It's crazy. Did you have something else to add to that?
No, I mean, I disagree with that logic per se. I mean, if a guy holds the belt for 10 years and, breaks his ankle in the first round, he shouldn't have to go fight 4 dudes and win all 4 of them before he got a shot at the title back.
I disagree because, that's what I love about a champion like Chuck Liddell. He would fight anybody. He was supposed to get that title shot before he fought Vernon Tiger White, And he didn't want. He thought he could have sat on the shelf, but he chose not to because if he thought if he couldn't beat Vernon White, then he doesn't deserve to be champion.
Well, that's different though. That's different.
That's what you want to see from a champ, though. You know.
Oh, absolutely. But that's different. We're not saying no, don't take that fight because you might get the next shot. That's what Chris Weidman's doing right now, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, he's turning down fights because he wants Anderson Silva. But I'm not saying that. I'm saying say Anderson Silva goes in there in his next defense, injures himself in the first round. Whatever, injures himself.
Yeah.
You know, doing whatever, a freak accident. Rehabs, you're telling me he needs to go run through 3 of the top contenders before he gets a shot at his belt?
Maybe not him, but okay.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Maybe not an Anderson Silva, or so, but definitely no immediate rematch. Got to can that once for all. I'm not completely on board with that. UFC's done a hell of a job ruining that whole thing recently, but I'm still not 100% on board with that. Well, you know what? We're never gonna. I don't think we're ever going to get that point because I don't think Anderson's going to slip on a banana peel.
Yeah.
And hopefully we've done away with those silly immediate rematches. They just kill the sport. Real quick before we go, this is an even better matchup.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this one. Johnny Hendricks, Martin Kampmann, they're slated for 154 in Montreal. It's going to be the co-main event. They haven't got the commitment from GSP yet, but the idea being that that's going to be the co-main event. GSP Condit is going to be the main event. I can't imagine that they're doing anything else but positioning these two guys for the next title shot, whether it's against Condit or GSP. And I actually think it's a great idea. I mean, you got Hendricks, he's won 4 straight. Kampmann, 3 straight. Take all those 7 wins. They're all against credible opponents.
Yeah.
I think either one of these guys with a win over each other absolutely have to get the next title shot. Absolutely. I mean, do you see that any different?
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, for some reason, Martin Kampmann, you know, I like the guy a lot. I think he's a terrific fighter, but I just, for whatever reason, I'm not 100% sold with him. And I said that before his last fight, and I don't know what it is. I mean, I should be. The guy's won 3 in a row against 3 good guys. I think his last win was against Ellenberger?
Ellenberger, right.
Yeah. It was. I don't know. But with Hendricks, the guy's a stud. I think he's next in line. I think he wins that fight. That's my early thoughts on that fight. And
well, they both bring something different to the table. I mean,
both
guys have a similarity in that they've both disposed of very highly credible wrestlers in that same division, but they've done it in 2 different ways. Hendricks does it with a left hook, and Martin Kampmann does it with a really active guard.
Yeah.
And that's really what won him the fight against Ellenberger. He was behind in the first round until he kept up a rhythm.
He was taking a beating in that first round, if I remember it right. Yeah.
He was, but it was that guard and that rhythm that he kept up that, I mean, he put up a rhythm that Ellenberger couldn't defend, and that was, you know, both guys have something distinctly different to offer is what I'm saying.
I agree. A great fight, great matchup, but I do agree with you, the winner there probably get the next title shot. We're a little ways away from seeing Nick Diaz toss his name back in there.
And he will. And then you got not that BJ Penn is next in line, but he's going to fight Rory McDonald. And Rory McDonald,
this is a great
another
point.
One.
But what I was just going to say, there's some rumors out there saying Dana's saying that if GSP gets past Condit, then he'll fight Anderson Silva.
A brilliant segue, because that was exactly what I was going to bring up next, and I can't stand that because, like I said, here's 4 credible guys that GSP has not fought yet. Dana White has always said that if somebody's going to go up in weight, they want to see them clean out the division. And if you were going to have this conversation a year ago, I would say, hey, move him up. He's clean out the division. But we got 4 guys now that GSP has not fought yet, and they're 4 guys that are as deserving as anybody out there.
I agree.
I'm tired
at the same time, I mean, I don't think there's anyone out there that wouldn't want to see that super fight.
No, I mean, I absolutely would want to see it too. It's just that, GSP's made it no secret that he wants to put on the weight, and it's going to be more of a permanent move. So should he get past Condit, does he vacate his title? We don't know. I mean,
what go? Yeah, it's a great point. That's a great point. Why would he not want to? He deserves it at this point to move up the right way, not just do it for a cash grab, not just do it because the UFC wants to make money.
Do it. Let's be honest. Him and Anderson Silva,
they both got a lot of money.
Probably the 2 richest guys in the UFC. I would argue. I mean, I couldn't
Who's
think
richer?
Yeah. I agree with that. These guys had more title fights. I mean, they build pay-per-views around both of these guys. I mean, the only unfortunate part is for the other guys in each division. Your Chris Weidmans or whoever's next in line for a title. I mean, you have a super fight. That means each title, should these guys both still be champion at that point in time, don't get defended for how long after that. It's at 170. I don't think you can get away with that at 170.
No.
There's too much of a bottleneck.
You're also assuming there's no injuries and training, all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
and 185's got that's as competitive
I think sometimes Dana says stuff like that just to get guys like you and I talking. Just to get the radio shows out there talking.
It works like a charm. I mean, I need something to talk about over here, but as much as I want to see the super fight, I don't think the timing's right, and I think it's bad for each division. And both of these guys, I don't know. One guy's got to be. I just think it's bad.
Yeah, I agree.
Bad for the sport.
I agree.
Very entertaining, but bad for the sport, I think. Got anything else you want to add?
I'm good.
Besides that, Twitter.
I'm Matt. You can follow me on Twitter at Daren PFP Sports.
At Nick PFP Sports. Check out our Facebook, Pound for Pound Sports. We update that thing every day with fighters that are going to be on the ESPN show, daily headlines, sponsors. Pay attention to our sponsors over there. We just threw up Epic Fights. They're awesome over there. So I also want to throw out pfpsports.com. Obviously, you guys are watching if you're listening to me and Daren talk right now. But like I said, if you click on the radio, you can hear us live, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we're going to have a lot of good guests on there. So click on that radio and don't miss us. We done here?
I'm done.
Praise be the Most High. That ain't no lie.
Cheers.
Catch y'all next time. Peace.